Welcome to Mangaroos, my mom's favorite manga podcast, and probably your mom's too. Do you know? Have you asked her? What's your mom's favorite manga podcast? This week, we are talking about Snowball Earth by Tsujitsugu Yuhiro. This is his debut manga, if you can believe it. It's published in Big Comics Spirits. We're discussing Volume 1 because that's what we always do. And this is the final episode in our trilogy of snow-themed episodes. If you're listening to this, it's probably the beginning of spring, bright and shiny and sunny. But it was the depths of cold February wintertime when we recorded this. So welcome. Welcome to Mangaroos. My name's Jason. I'm joined as always by...
Mark the Snow King.
And
Alex, I don't know if I'm a snow queen, but I'm a dweller of the winter. I don't know
we all are. And as we discussed last week, I think Elsa is the only true snow queen, at least in my heart. So this was my pick this week. I had been looking forward to reading this for a long, long time. So for anyone who's just tuning in, if you're not super familiar with Snowball Earth, I'm not sure it has an official English translation yet. I know it has an official German translation because I found a whole bunch about it when I was Googling. And also, if you Google Snowball Earth, be sure to enter the word manga afterwards, because otherwise all of your search results will be about the phenomenon of Earth literally.
Science stuff.
I enjoyed reading about that.
Yeah, I did too. It was fun.
Out in another dimension.
I think clearly Tsujitsugu sensei probably was inspired by some of that as well. So just a bit of background. Part of the reason I chose this one, it's got really good word of mouth. It's starting to pick up in terms of sales. But what really intrigued me is that when you see it in the bookstore, sometimes the tankobon will have like an obi, which is the little strip that's around the bottom of the book. Yeah, the kind of a book jacket, exactly. And the recommendations for this particular manga were some heavy hitters. So the first volume had this big endorsement from Anno Hideaki, the creator of Evangelion.
I was
and then volume
him up, yeah.
2.
Me too, dang.
Yeah, I mean, we'll definitely.
It's hard to miss that. It's the first thing you read. They even cover up the Snowball Earth title and just like Anno Hideaki.
Yeah.
Well, here's what you really need to know, right? And then and volume 2 was endorsed by Kojima Hideo of Metal Gear Solid fame and Death Stranding. And then volume 3 was endorsed by One Sensei, so the creator of One Punch Man, etc.
Nice.
So clearly, like, I saw that in the bookstore. I was like, clearly there's some payola happening there. But if all three of those gentlemen enjoy what's going on in this manga, gosh darn it, I got to check it out for myself. So before we get into, real deep analysis or whatever, what did you guys think of it? What was your takeaway from it? Just real quick. Did you dig it? Did you enjoy it?
I don't know. Should we go by name order
Alex,
or something?
You go ahead.
And my name starts with an A, so
Alphabetically.
let's take the liberty. I liked it. The first part of it, I was like, where's this? How is this getting to snow? You're a little bit. You wonder how it's going to happen. And then you see that there's a time skip. And then you find out what happens afterward. And that's the more intriguing part to me.
Yeah.
So I liked that happened after.
Cool.
But in the beginning, I was a bit like, I don't know right now what I'm reading.
It starts off pretty weird.
Yeah.
It starts out with Tetsuo, the main character, kind of flying through space in his gigantic robot, destroying some creepy looking
and being
monster
like
things.
very, very like socially anxious.
Extremely.
So it's just like story of socially anxious pilot in space.
Which is something we've never seen before in manga or anime.
Yeah, and referred to as a savior.
Mm-hmm.
And
Literally
you don't
from the
know
get-go.
exactly when he became the savior of humanity or like who put him in the savior position.
Yeah, it seems to have been a collective decision, doesn't it? Like all of humanity has just agreed upon that. What did you think, Mark? Just in general, overall.
Well, I should preface this by saying Jason and I have a relationship that goes back many years. And
It's true.
for a long time now, he's been putting wacky manga on my desk and saying you've got to read this, and it's a two-way street, right? I've been giving him some stuff too, so it's not like a non-reciprocal relationship. But when you first brought up Snowball, I had never heard of it before. It was off my radar, and many things are, but this one was not. So I picked up the volume at one of my favorite local bookstores, and it was really easy to find right there on the shelf. And the next opportunity I had, I was on the train on the way home. I cracked it open, and I was like, oh, okay, so this is going to be like a weather phenomenon manga, but it's pretty obvious that this is like a mecha manga. So you open it up, start reading, and I thought, oh, it's going to be one of those. Socially awkward boy has, issues making friends, but he bonds with the robots. So I thought this was going to go on for 4 volumes, but that ends really quick. Yep. So I don't know. I think the one thing that we have to give this creator is their ability to work in plot twists that keep you guessing. I didn't see that coming. Yeah. So that was good. And by the time they got into the meat of the story, I was interested enough to want to buy Volume 2, but I haven't yet.
I got to tell you, speaking of the meat of the story, I mean, there's literally a chapter in the middle of the story where they're carving up one of the gigantic monsters for meat. So I don't know if you did that intentionally, Mark, but if you did, well done.
Oh, I did. That's the biggest thing that sticks out in my mind.
It was very Gulliver's Travels.
The Lilliputians on top of the space. Galactic
See, my mind
kaiju.
went to Pikmin, but, whatever. Yeah, or Kaiju Cleanup. There's a little bit of all of that. I think I misinformed both of you, so this has not been part of any official episode so far, but in our previous conversation, I said that there were only 4 episodes and that the series was finished. I was misinformed.
That's why I was so confused, because I was like, how is this going to finish in 4 volumes? And then I gotta be honest,
I don't know why I thought that, but the good news is Volume 5 is actually coming out later this month. Okay. And do I own Volumes 1 through 4? Yes, I absolutely do. I gotta say, this may have been my favorite Volume 1 that we've looked at so far. It's completely insane in terms of pacing. I think...
Very manic.
When I found out that this was the mangaka's first story, like his debut, it kind of made sense to me, because it's one of those debuts where clearly he wanted to do a whole bunch of stuff with his story. And instead of choosing one lane, he just said, I'm going to drive in all of the lanes. I'm going to do everything that I enjoy. So yeah, like the first chapter has the super awkward boy in his robot, piloting it through space, shooting up crazy looking monsters, crash land on a snow and ice planet where there doesn't appear to be anybody. So then we're thinking it's like a post-apocalypse, frozen Earth story, but then also it's a giant monster story. But then it's also a story about a boy learning to make friends and find his way in the world. And then it's also kind of a comedy sometimes as well. And I think he does all of these things relatively well, but for me it's just the way it's all kind of smashed together. It kept me guessing the entire time. I never knew what was going to happen.
So is Volume 2 the same in terms of, like, twists?
Oh, do they go to the jungle planet next? Because that would be a little bit
I'm just wondering. Just curious.
So, yeah, that's a great question. I got to say that it continues a little bit into Volume 2, where it's just, like, there's some, like, family drama stuff, and then there's, like, flashbacks to other characters' stories, which are, like, tragic and sad and action-packed. And so, yeah, it continues to contain pretty much every genre you can imagine, but in a way that I think is really exciting and weird. And then there's also, these panels that are, like, over-the-top artistic, like, almost abstract interjections into the storytelling.
Yeah, I was surprised by some panels. Like,
he's trying to do a lot. Which one surprised you the most, Alex?
When it's about the robot, and it's the robot's perspective, the robot's having a little monologue, and it's like very emotional and kind of abstract, like the whole in Tetsuo.
Yeah.
Like that kind of like squiggly.
Right. So
and
there's
just
one
a white page, with like ink and squiggly lines.
Which is totally out of left field, because up until that point, the manga is like kind of typical shonen action, like really polished, really nice visual style. And then all of a sudden you get to this page where Yeah,
do
it's like
you know Kareshi Kanojo no Jijo? Kare
no.
Kano
No,
no
I'm gonna
Jijo,
say
whatever. What was
no,
it called?
no.
I'm gonna say no. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That was I think it was a Hideaki Anno like directed anime.
Okay.
And
Then maybe I
that
do, but I'm not an
had-
anime
That
guy.
actually had a lot of this type of scene where it
The
was
squiggles around the
outlines,
heart?
squiggly outlines of people, and like a lot of emotional, like
Well,
moya moya.
Yeah, no, it's
kind
like
of
episode 24 of
craziness.
Evangelion is what it reminded me of when like
Yeah.
Well, that's
Yeah.
where my
shooting
mind
inside.
went to, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
we've danced around it enough. We kind of have to talk about it now. I mean, obviously Anno was chosen for a reason to endorse that first.
Well, you probably didn't
volume.
want to get sued, so he's like, I gotta get this guy on board.
So, I think we should talk about first of all. So, for both of you, what place does Evangelion have in your life? Because, and the reason I ask that is because, I mean, Tetsuo, the main story, the main character of Snowball Earth, Tetsuo is clearly playing off of Shinji, right? The awkward boy who's chosen by destiny and by his kind of maybe evil scientist
Dad.
father
Yeah.
to pilot this gigantic robot that nobody else can pilot because they're so compatible with each other. So, you know, clearly you're going to get more out of Snowball Earth if you have some kind of feeling about Evangelion. But Mark, what role did Evangelion play in your life, if any?
Oh my gosh, Evangelion, without question, was the gateway to binging anime series for me. So it. Well, I should back up a little bit. I had grown up watching programs like Voltron or whatnot, and I always knew it was cool, but it didn't really like register in my mind as, oh, this is from Japan. Gigantor was also one that I thought was pretty cool. And then when Toonami came on Cartoon Network, it was Macross, Robotech in English. That was. It just really blew me away. And that's when I was like, really, oh, okay, so these Japan cartoons, they're way better than Disney's Tailspin. I would literally race home after school just to watch the next episode of Robotech. It was that good. We won't talk about Southern Cross because that is not really Robotech, and that's a whole nother conversation. But then I grew up a little bit, went into high school, kind of backed away from all that. And then I go into college my freshman year, and this guy I've never met is my roommate. And he has this gigantic wall full of like all these anime posters. He's a sophomore, I'm a freshman. And I'm like, okay, you know, that's cool, whatever. I'm open to new experiences. And he's like, dude, you've got to watch this. And he's like literally got his entire bookshelf is full of just different anime series. And the first one he gives me is Evangelion. And I'm like, freshman, a new town, don't have a lot of friends, don't have a lot to do. So I just binge watched it.
I think not having a lot of friends is key to the Evangelion experience for a lot of people.
It definitely, it's the sauce on the cake. Yeah, no, I loved it. I fell in love instantly. Yeah, no, it opened a lot of doors for me. Without that, I would not be where I am today. Alex, what about you?
It's cool that you didn't come to it until sort of later in life.
Oh, it was much later, yeah.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
18 or 19, yeah.
Wow. What about you, Alex? Yeah.
I had a weird introduction to it because I think it was like it was the first time I came to Japan. I did like a summer study thing.
How old were you?
And I was like 14 or 15.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And I just like was just a very like weeby person who wanted to go to Japan.
Sure.
And like I had
Kind
like
of how people wind up here.
yeah, memorize some like phrases. So that was like my level of Japanese, and I was did this summer program thing for a month in Toyama, and there was
wow.
this guy.
Not
on
Wayama.
Yeah, not Wayama. It's Toyama. It's very unlike the Japan that I had imagined, of course. because
Nobody
when you
imagines
end up-
Toyama.
Yeah, no.
when you end up in
Even
Toyama.
after being in Japan for many years, you still go to Toyama and you are surprised.
Yeah. You're like, wow, there's nothing here. So there was a lot of nothing there. And there were other kids on this program. And one of the kids, he was like really into like Evangelion and very like hardcore otaku in that like he would like actively seek out like more information where I was more passive, where I'd
Passive
be like,
otaku.
if it's translated into English, I'll like consume it. But I don't really like know the not translated things.
Oh, got it.
And he went to like Book Off or something and like or maybe he went to Staya and like rented like all of the like series.
Yeah.
And he was just like, you really need to watch this. Like, come over. Like, he was doing his program at like a monk's house. So
What?
there was like a crazy, yeah. So it was like host family for the month.
That's
It was
awesome.
it was like an Otera.
With
And
a
so he's
DVD
like, come
player.
over to the Otera
After we
and like,
finish our Zen
let's
meditation
watch
time.
all of Evangelion. And I was like, okay, but I'm not that good at Japanese. And he's like, you'll understand.
You will
I don't
be
know
by
how
the
he
time
did
you
it.
watch all of
It's fine.
Evangelion.
He's like, it'll be great. And somehow I watched all of it in Japanese without really understanding what's happening.
No,
Like,
I know that experience. So Evangelion brought me to Japan as well. If I didn't have that, I would have never studied abroad. But the homestay family I was staying at, they're like, "Oh, here's Nausicaa, and you'll love this." And I was like, "What the fuck is this?" I
This is
have no
for
idea what's going on.
babies.
Yeah, this is for babies.
Wow, that's crazy. So I didn't realize that we were also like deeply affected by Evangelion.
and,
but
and not that we sought it out. It's kind of like
was
it's almost like
foisted
a
upon
rite
you.
of no, it's a
it
rite
was
of passage.
foisted. I think it makes people want other people to see it. They're like missionaries.
Yeah, but can I say that I think that your reaction to Evangelion, I mean, you can have one, it's very polarizing, will dictate how the rest of your life goes. Because I've had friends that I've shown it to, and I
They're
remember this one, I had this
disgusted.
roommate. No, I had this roommate right after, well, this is during college, and I was like, hey, I did the same thing. I was like, look, here's the VHS tapes. He got the flu or something, and I was like, you need to watch this because you're going to be home for a few days. So just binge watch it. And like, he watches the first like 3 tapes. And he's like, this is amazing. This is the best thing ever. Thank you so much for sharing this with me. And then like 10 tapes later, he's like, what the fuck did you get me into? I hate this.
What,
And it-
really? I hope
No,
that
he hated the
listen,
last couple episodes, and he hated the ending as well.
I mean, the ending. Okay, fair enough. I can see why someone might hate the ending.
Did you
but
see the new ending?
Oh, you mean all 7 of them?
movies?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone. They're just still trying to get it right.
I have to say that. Well, so I haven't really shared my Evangelion story, and I gotta be honest with you. I don't remember who foisted it upon me, but I do remember going to the local mall. I was like 13, which is, I think, the perfect age to watch Evangelion when you're an awkward, weird 13-year-old. And I remember going to the mall and renting VHS tapes. And it was like 2 episodes per tape. And I had to keep going back like every week or whatever until I saw the whole thing. And it just like kind of destroyed my brain. It just like broke my perception. I was like, this stuff isn't supposed to be happening in a cartoon. What is this? Why is this happening? Why did I suddenly understand the world better than I ever did before when I finished this series? It was like I had never experienced something that I had felt was like, this is art. There's something deeper going on here, right? So that was my experience. And yeah, I mean, I don't like to admit this, but I don't know if I would have ever come to Japan if I didn't watch Evangelion and also really vibe with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not
But
something that you...
I can't remember meeting anyone who doesn't feel that way about it. I must have like filtered those people out of my memories or something. People,
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, if they didn't feel that way, but they're probably not in a position to have regular interactions with you in their daily life. Now, they're probably
that's true. I
working
would have
at
kind
a
of
big
filtered them
bank.
out socially. I would have said, I have no time for you. Okay, so we say all that to say, we all have deep and important feelings about Evangelion. I wanted to say that to me, the movies do not exist because the original 24-episode show is a perfect thing of beauty, does not need to be expanded upon or revisited or revised or anything. So
Got it right the
that's
first time?
enough.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And I did
I
try
didn't think
watching
the movies
first
were
movie.
that bad, but
I don't care if they're good or bad. I just
Oh, okay.
I don't need a different take. You know,
Well,
I
thought
feel
it was because Gainax needed a little bit more money just to keep the lights on.
I think that's part of it. Yeah,
fair
definitely.
to say money probably changed hands. But what did you think about Shinji, right? Like, he's so central to the experience of Evangelion. As a character, did you feel any kind of way about him in your life? Mark?
Oh gosh, so I think when I first watched it when I was like 18, I felt for him. I felt like he was you know, he had a shitty relationship with his dad, and he never really got that love that he was supposed to get. But then he also had this amazing experience where he got to ride a giant robot and then beat up these bad guys who were coming to take over Earth. So I felt like he kind of had, you know, overall he had it pretty good. But then I watched this again during the pandemic because my wife had gone to have our second baby. She went back home, as you do in this country in which we live. So I had a little bit of time to myself where I was just holding down the fort, and I was like, I am going to rewatch Evangelion. This is what I will do with my time, and I will watch.
I also watched Evangelion during the pandemic.
It is a pandemic. This is 2020,
Yeah.
and the thing that really stuck out to me is it's so obvious how like Shinji starts from this place of like he can't do anything right, and he's like the ne'er-do-well, and then Asuka is like this person who's perfect, and she's like, you know, she can do everything, and then they switch places. So I feel like and that never really stood out to me before. So I think at the end, like he gets a lot of affirmation, he gets the love that he needs, and he's able to do what he needs to do, even though it kind of destroys him inside a little bit. But I think, I mean, I don't know. I feel like he is just a vehicle for us to examine our own relationships and personal interactions.
So it sounds like you don't have any strong feelings about Shinji as
as a whiny little brat? Sure, yeah.
Because I know a lot of people really hate him. Alex, what do you think? What's your relationship with Shinji?
I don't know. Like, at first I was like, why is he like this? But then I was like, well, it makes sense. You should also, like, never have teenagers, like, saving the world, because that's just the world is a very bad place if that's, like, who you're counting on.
A clear design flaw.
Yeah, it's a very big design flaw. So, therefore, like, I don't think it's his fault that... I don't think any of it is his fault.
Fair enough. Yeah, he is sort of a figure of pity. I never found it in my heart to hate Shinji, but also, you know, I never really loved him either. He's kind of a wiener. I don't think he's there.
He's not there to love, but I think he's there to empathize. I can't speak. Empathize with.
Yeah, he's a vehicle.
And that I could definitely do. So the reason I ask all of that and why I bring up all the Evangelion stuff is to return to Snowball Earth, right? So Tsujitsugu Sensei has this main character who's clearly inspired by Shinji. He's following the Shinji
down to the haircut.
Even down to the haircut, even some of the facial expressions.
Yeah, the haircut, yeah.
But, so two things, right? So Tsujitsugu Sensei is young enough that I think he might have been like a baby when Evangelion came out,
1994. 1994.
Yeah,
so
he
he's
was
29 years old.
Oh.
Okay, so he was like a year old when Evangelion first started. So he clearly must have come to Evangelion kind of later in life, which, first of all, that's kind of interesting, right? But then also, he takes the Shinji archetype and he makes this character in Tetsuo who's like clearly supposed to be a comedic figure, I think. But that's what I'm trying to figure out, right? Like with Shinji, you get all of this kind of pathos and he's very easy to empathize with, and like you put yourself into his shoes. Tetsuo is the opposite. Like he's so super awkward to the point of almost being hard to believe as a character. But then, for that reason, I found him to be really kind of amusing and likable and funny and silly. But what did you all think of Tetsuo?
Alex, you should go first.
You're shaking your head, Mark, so I want to know why are you shaking your head?
Look, Snowball Earth is not Evangelion. It is so much goofier.
Yeah.
Like Evangelion, it takes itself so seriously. Like when you are watching it to find out the secrets of life. Snowball Earth, I mean, it's got a few secrets in there, but it's a ride, it's a journey, it's entertainment. And
I think the real secret is the Snowball Earth. Like,
right?
Why?
Yeah.
Itself, right?
Yeah.
There's no snowballs in Evangelion. Yeah, you lost Tokyo, but you got Hakone. It's great. You can go to the onsen after work.
I do sort of wonder whether there will be more Evangelion influences later on. Already in Volume 2.
I'm guessing that there will be definitely. I feel like this person really loves Hideaki Anno just because like I can see so much of like everything he's worked on.
There's definitely some
like,
Shin
it is just
Gojira
one
in
volume.
Yeah.
Well, I see the Shin Godzilla, and then I see the Kare Kano, and I see the Evangelion. It's already 3 media properties that he's worked on in only
doing a
one
couple of
volume.
shout-outs.
So like it's just like seems like so many shout outs. But what I think about Tetsuo is he's a very shonen hero actually, which is very different from Shinji in my view. Because he, even though he doesn't have any tools at his disposal, he has the pure shonen desire to help and
Literally,
to kill
yeah.
the kaiju. I guess we're
And to
just gonna
make
call them
friends.
kaiju.
And to make
and to make
friends.
friends. So it's just very like Shonen Jump hero, which is interesting to me because like I don't expect that. But yeah, and then he's also got anxiety, so I guess that makes him a bit Shinji-esque.
So that's
in
what
that
I
he
found.
doesn't know how to like
that's why it's in
connect with
spirits.
people. Yeah.
So it's interesting, right? He's a very typical shonen protagonist, but did you find him more or less relatable than Shinji for that reason? Like, it seems like he should be more of a cartoon character.
Yeah, he's
And
more
therefore-
cartoony because of that.
He's not as
Which
relatable.
I thought should make him harder to relate to, but for me it made him much more like personable and like I really just like hanging out with Tetsuo. So we should say, Alex, you mentioned that he has no tools at his disposal, but he does have one tool, and that's a self-help book that is, what is it called? It's like How to Make Friends in 777 Steps.
Yeah.
Which I found, I don't know, for some reason that joke really worked on me. Step 1 is literally meet a person or meet people, right?
I mean, that is how it needs to happen. Although I feel like there is a step 0 because it's like, how do you create the situation to meet a person?
Alex, you should write a book about this, and you would probably help Tetsuo a lot.
That's like, I've been in friendless situations of like moving to a new country and living in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, sure, I would love to meet someone. Where? Like that was when I was in Gunma. I was like, where am I gonna find these people?
Yeah,
So when
you
you
can't-
first got to Gunma, did you just start wandering around and then come across a friendly-looking old man? But then when you accidentally touched him, his head fell off because he was frozen solid?
No, he
I'm
can't
glad
take me
that
to my
did not
village.
happen. I'm glad it did not happen. But usually when I'm walking around,
Would have been an awkward
alone
conversation down
and
at
a
the station.
friendly old man approaches me, it's usually not a good thing. Especially when I was living in Gunma, I lived near Ota, which is a place with with the biggest pink district outside of Tokyo in Kanto.
Really?
And some old man approached me and said, "How much?"
Oh, no.
So that was the kind of dearu I was.
That's not the one you were...
experiencing.
Oh, wow.
Not even like a,
You should not
greeting?
noru there. You should
Yeah.
just get out. Nigedasu.
To the point.
Step 3, nigedasu, not kikidasu.
Yeah.
Crazy. I did
But
not know that about Ota. That's good to know. So, okay,
Good to know for a while.
I wanted to ask, like, what are some of your favorite moments or what are some of your favorite pages or panels in the story? So I found that delightful when Tetsuo, arrives on this snowy planet. He's like, where am I going to meet people? I just want to make friends. By the way, side note, I found it delightful that he literally crash lands on a planet, understanding that it's been 10 years since he's been on this planet because
8
he
years.
spent so
10
much
years,
time
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
away from Earth. And still the first thing on his mind is, I got to make some friends. It's just, he's so
Well, he
committed.
made a promise. He made a promise
Yeah.
to Yukio, and that was his only friend. I think,
I
no.
mean,
Oh, we should talk about
he
Yukio,
knows it was
actually.
10 years, but I mean, when you're asleep and you wake up, it
That's
doesn't
like a
feel like
second,
10
man.
years,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, it's like
It-
a second.
Amen to that. Absolutely. I've had some good sleeps that I wish were a lot
love
longer.
sleeping.
We should talk about Yukio, though. We've spent a lot of time talking about Tetsuo. So the other kind of main character in this story, I guess, is Tetsuo's big giant robot named Yukio, right? What did you think of Yukio, Alex?
I thought he seemed like a supportive robot to have in Tetsuo's life. Like, that's a very, I don't know, it's very like, AI is usually like one note, but I think Yukio had a lot of depth, which is like very sophisticated for a robot. So, and also it seems like he grew up, which
Like,
also
he
is
got
like
more
how
mature?
Yeah, because like he gets, I guess, a new body.
Yeah, well, if you
'cause
notice
he
at the
goes from
beginning,
Snowball, to
Oh,
like
that's true.
Snowman, right?
Yep.
he does.
So it's
So
like
we
he
should mention
grows up
that,
with Tetsuo.
And then
Tetsuo's-
Snowflake at the end.
Oh,
yeah,
a
true.
snowflake.
Yep.
So
No,
for
I
some
was
reason
noticing
that
this.
I don't think is ever really fully explained, Tetsuo's father is this like preeminent engineer, robotic scientist.
Name is
And
Gendo.
he developed this kind of defense robot that just looks like kind of a big onigiri. Like it's
It's like
just
very
like
cute.
it is cute. It's just like a big white circle thing, and he's named Snowball. And yeah, so that's like Yukio's original form. What did you think of Yukio, Mark?
Yeah, I mean, it was an original form, and then when you're introduced in that flashback series, you see that the first thing that this robot is doing is he's self-aware, and he was designed to make his way into enemy territory and blow himself up and blow up the space monsters, right? So like no one has to die. He's like a drone basically. And then the
Right.
first thing that this robot is doing is like, hey, I don't want to die. You should, you got to protect the rights of robots and whatnot. And that's how they become friends, Tetsuo and Yukio. And when the first whatever space monster comes into town, and they're like, oh, they send this robot to go blow him up or whatnot. Tetsuo hops into the robot. And you have to remember, this dad who made this robot, this is his son, and so he's not
And
going to
he's
make
like
it blow up.
7 or 9.
He was
or
9 years
something.
old. 9 years
Yeah.
old. You're not gonna blow up your robot if your kid's inside. I'm not gonna do that.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
And neither did this guy, even though he's kind of awkward.
Really?
But I think Yukio felt a debt to Tetsuo there. And then from there, it's like a Han Solo Chewbacca type thing. It's not really a
Yeah, it is a little bit.
but it goes from there.
So I think that's one clear distinction between this and Evangelion. Obviously, we never get too much insight into the Evangelion's psyche. Like we know they're alive, kind of, but they never really become characters. They're just like weapons. They're
No.
plot devices,
Yeah.
right? But Yukio is, I don't know, reminded me of the Iron Giant. Have either of you seen the Iron
Yeah,
Giant?
yeah. The design also looks like the Iron Giant. So I was
Totally. So
wondering
you-
if that was inspired.
He's got a little bit of like an Iron Man, Iron Giant. He's just like really physically imposing. Like he looks like he should be this big scary death robot, but he's so like gentle and friendly and like you
Yeah.
said, supportive. He's just such a nice
Yeah, he's like a robot that you would want to have a therapy session with.
totally.
No,
I
he's
guess
got all
a-
the social skills that Tetsuo doesn't have.
Yeah.
It is sort of adorable when Tetsuo's looking at his book, his 777 steps for making friends, and he's really like studying it seriously, and he's like, I've got to remember all of these. And just repeatedly throughout the book, Yukio's like, are you reading another self-help book? You gotta stop. Those things are junk, man. Just get out there and live for yourself. And how cute is it that it's a robot teaching a human how to
Yeah.
make friends?
You know what? He needs to write a self-help book.
Ah,
Yukio.
just for
Yeah.
Tetsuo.
Just for Tetsuo.
And in a way, he did.
Oh. Good
So
point.
one of my favorite scenes actually is early on in sort of towards the end of the first chapter, when all of these gross, weird Shin Godzilla monster things are all swarming around Yukio, and he just gets exploded at some point, and there's this amazing 2-page spread.
Yeah, yeah. I was gonna
Where he's
say
just
like,
being
yeah, that was
blown
really
apart.
amazing. Yeah.
But then in the lower left, you see his hand, and it's in a thumbs up.
yeah. It was cute.
It's the ultimate, like, you're gonna be okay, buddy. Just go on without me. Him saying to Tetsuo, and yeah.
I really
things
like
get
it
weird
because
from
it looks like painted with black sumi paint.
It
Like it
does,
looks like
yeah.
it's brushwork. So it's just like so expressive. But then it doesn't come back. Like there's no other panels like that. So it makes it special.
And there's another example of that too. There's one kind of panel on the top of one page where it shows Tetsuo and like his friends from kindergarten, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually the page before that big spread we were just talking about. And that too, to me, looks like a completely different art style, and it only shows up for this one panel.
It's very surreal.
It's weird,
very
isn't it?
This
Yeah.
This was Evangelion episode 24 to me.
Yeah, that was I thought was very Evangelion like
Totally.
that panel. But because I'm like, why are all the kids in little Kigurumi?
Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah, they're all
It's
wearing
awkward.
little bunny outfits, and
Yeah.
their eyes are like, I don't know, like sparkly
Sparkly.
doll eyes.
They're sparkly shoujo eyes.
Well, they're
Shoujo
friends.
eyes, yeah,
They're
they are.
friends.
They're totally shoujo eyes.
And then you
It's
got
peace.
Yukio in the back. Yeah.
Yeah, it's Yuki in the back.
I'm really impressed, again, I sort of mentioned this already, but with his ability to just kind of play with different styles and just kind of mash it all together. And I really do think that's something you only get from someone who's just starting their career, right? Because it's just like, let's throw it all at the wall, see what works. I'm personally really excited to see what kind of career Tsujitsugu will have, because whatever happens with this series, clearly it's got really good word of mouth. The reviews online are awesome. It's starting to pick up in terms of sales, like it's starting to get reprinted. I think this series could get big. Clearly Big Comic Spirits is putting a big push behind it, but whatever happens with this series, I'll be interested to see what he does next as well. I'm just a big fan of his style because he's really putting it all out there. I feel like I get a lot of his personality through not only the art, but just the way this weird story is told. So those are some of my favorite parts. You know, the Yukio being blown up, the old frozen man kind of falling apart at the merest touch. Were there any other parts, maybe from later in the story or at any point during the story, like panels or pages that really stood out to you, Mark, that you thought were really cool?
Yeah, there is one right here. It's the one where right after he's stolen the front end shovel loader, and then he's cruising down and he finds that hole, and then all of a sudden a giant space monster, and this is your first encounter with the space monster on the Snowball Earth, because you don't really know why everything is frozen over, and then it's just like, oh well, I guess they didn't win after all, because until that point you're like, well, maybe they killed them all and the Earth just like blew up because of the fallout or whatnot, like who knows what happened. But this is when you know that, oh, maybe things didn't go as well as they had hoped.
That's true, right? Because we see like kind of almost like a de-evolved forms of those monsters, but they're literally in space and they're like flying through the cosmos.
I have a theory about that, but I will save it for the
We'll get to that later. Alex, were there any parts or like pages that you thought were really cool?
I mean, I was gonna mention the one where he blows himself up with the thumbs up. I did like that one too, and also before that one, when the monsters are eating away at his body. It was really well drawn. I don't know, I really like it. And then also I was going to mention about the old man too cracking. But I kind of wanted more of that, because I like that kind of like abandoned world, like things like falling apart. And I wanted more like isolation. So I don't know, I wish that he had been, like, I wish he hadn't encountered humans so readily.
That's I think that's a really fair criticism. I was also hoping for like a little bit more of a survival story, or like a, you know, we know he's a very socially stunted person. He's awkward around people. So that's the perfect kind of character to thrust into a situation where there's no other people around. And
I wanted, what was it called? Like, you know, the volleyball being your best friend.
Wilson?
Type.
You wanted a
Wilson.
Castaway?
Yeah, I wanted a Wilson. I wanted Yukio to come back
Snowball?
as like a ball or something.
Yeah, actually, me too. I was hoping for a bit more of that. And there's literally like 3 or 4 pages where Tetsuo's alone, and then the entire rest of the book he's surrounded by people. And then that continues throughout the series. He's just always like with a crew, and then you find out about the bad people over here, and it's
there's bad people.
Whoops, you've said too much. It's okay when they make this
there's
into an
always bad
anime version.
people. Yeah.
That
can't
3
have a shonen
pages
manga.
will be like 3 episodes of filler, so it's all good.
Because humans are always the worst monster in these series, where
And
they're
the most
monsters.
dangerous game.
Yeah.
Speaking of the monsters, what did you think of the monster designs? Because they're very striking, I guess you could say. They're real weird looking. Alex, what did you think of the monster designs?
I messaged you guys with the Shin Godzilla second form, because I just felt like he saw the movie and was like, I want more of this, and then put them in space.
I have to say, when you sent that to us, my original reaction was, cool, they made plushies of Snowball Earth monsters? and then I had to do a double take and realize what it actually was that you were
Did you
sending.
guys not see the movie?
Oh, no, I did. But I saw it
did?
like when it was new, so I kind of forgot.
I saw it when it was new too.
Yeah.
But that monster, like that Godzilla changing through all the different forms.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like, it affected me. So
Really?
like I have not been able to like forget
Sleep at night.
any of the forms of Godzilla from that movie. I don't know why.
The buggy, the ways
the buggy
the big
eyes.
giant buggy eyes are really unsettling to me. So
Yeah. So like that I never forgot the buggy-eyed Godzilla. And then when they came up in this, even though they're not Godzilla specifically, but maybe they visited Godzilla on the way because they have the ability to evolve, apparently.
Clearly.
So maybe there was a Godzilla planet that they stopped by and they got like the buggy formation, and then they came now and they're coming to the human world. And now
Mark,
they're getting
you're
the
making some
arms
wild
and legs.
gestures over there. What do you think of the monsters?
You both are way off. It's very clear at the end that the alien that's sitting right in front of Tokyo Tower is touched down in Tokyo. And is just kind of like enjoying a cool moment on the snow before he hits the slopes, is the master of this alien race. And it's pretty much like the Zerg in StarCraft, where there is a whole hierarchy of monsters. And the first ones that were introduced at the beginning, like these space slugs, they are the lowest of the low, right? So these, what they're sent to do, they're like the underlings, the foot soldiers. They're sent to search and destroy, find places that they can turn into these beautiful snow resorts for their masters. And they found the Earth, and this particular Snowball Earth, hence the name of the manga. And they send those in, and they blow up. They've only got 2 spaceships, by the way. So I mean, good on Earth for coming up with space technology, but still, that's not going to be enough to win the day against these monsters. And then you have to notice that the monsters that are on Earth after that are different than the ones who are floating around in space. Not only is there the little guy who's got hands now and he's not so much like a plushie, but the one that comes after that with the weird neck thing,
That
you
one's
know
gross.
this guy, he's got a lot more HP than these other monsters that we've seen to date. And then finally at the end, like the cliffhanger is that these are the real bad guys. And these are the ones that you're going to have to spend a lot more time. I don't know if you can just like beat them with a knife or a front end shovel loader.
I do feel like there might be some kind of psychic warfare happening, right? No, but it plays into what you said about humans being the most dangerous, actually, because, the monsters start out looking very monstrous and weird and inhuman and creepy, and then each consecutive monster that we encounter looks more and more human-like, until that final guy that you mentioned basically just looks like a human with a creepy face, right? But otherwise just a person, basically. I also deeply curious to find out whether Tsujitsugu was influenced by the Drake album cover. Are either of you familiar with this? So Drake has this, one of his albums, I can't remember which one it is. I think it's called The View From Here or something. I'm not a big Drake fan, but there's one album cover where he's sitting on the CN Tower. And it's basically the exact same pose as this monster guy.
Like
on the
a
last
playful semi-pin-up pose.
Yeah, just kind of like hanging out. It is a little bit flirtatious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is flirtatious.
Well,
It's
no,
doing a little.
flirty.
He's got a little music note thing.
It's like he's clearly just like come into his own, right? He is going to love this new planet. He feels like he's on vacation.
Yeah.
So here's conspiracy theory for both of you.
Okay.
So throughout this first volume, we repeatedly encounter Tetsuo. I almost said Shinji. Lol. Tetsuo's father, right? But each time we see him, his eyes are very clearly.
Yeah,
obscure.
I thought that was a very Gendo thing.
Super Gendo, super like evil anime dad thing. Like we remember most of him, but we don't remember his face. And then
You can't look him in the eyes.
We just kind of like stop hearing about him after a while. And then boom, flash forward to the end of the book. There's this extremely human looking kind of happy-go-lucky monster weirdo on top of Tokyo Tower. You know what I'm saying here? I see a look of...
Do you think that his father made the ice monsters in order to get more funding for his robot projects?
It wasn't
But I
quite
thought he
good.
wanted to get money as an end result. I thought that was his thing.
Well, I think he always wanted money. I mean, that's how he
Yeah.
got into the robotics industry.
I'm just wondering...
But if you turn the world into a snowball, you don't get money.
Not part of the plan? Is it like the first impact?
So the kind of final piece of the puzzle that we haven't really discussed is like, in addition to these weirdo monsters, there's also these mysterious orbs that sort of appear whenever the more human-looking ones show up, especially
Oh, I thought
towards the
those
end.
were celestial air conditioners, and that was what making everything really cold.
That's how you get a snowball Earth. As if you read the Wikipedia article,
No,
that's
but
step one.
Clearly, the slug monsters that are in space are not the same monsters as this guy at the end, because space is really, really cold. It's like minus 270, and like really almost absolute zero. And those space monsters have no problem with just flying around, biting stuff.
They seem to love it.
They love it. They do. But
They're
then this
thriving.
guy at the end, volume 1. So Tetsuo, yes, everything is frozen over and there's snow everywhere, but he finds this front end shovel car, and he cranks it up and it runs, which means it's not colder than -30. And then so it's not like the same space type conditions. And then the guy at the end, who's having a really good time, must love it. I'd say it's about -15, -20 tops.
I love
Two
how
different
specific
angles.
you're getting.
Well,
Yeah, you're getting very specific.
As a Canadian,
thought about
gotta
this a
say,
lot.
-15's not even that cold.
No, it's not. Your
actually.
face
Yeah.
doesn't hurt. And you see
Yeah.
Tetsuo, he's walking around, doesn't have any face protection. It's not that cold. And there's a chance for Earth there, too.
Interesting. I'm surprised you got into the real like geothermal elements here.
You're very into the actual temperature. I wasn't thinking about the actual temperature.
I was just like, okay, cold. Got it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Alex, what do you think? What's going on in terms of like, who is this weirdo at the end? And what is the relationship between that final weirdo sitting on Tokyo Tower and the slug monsters and the freezing of the Earth? Do you have any ideas?
Because I was thinking so much about Godzilla, I was thinking that that's the final form. Because, like, you know, in Shin Godzilla, at the end, you see the tail of Godzilla, and then you see there's, like, humans.
Totally, yeah.
At
That was
on
my
the
favorite part
tail.
of the movie. Yeah.
And I was like, that's it. Like, that's the final form is becoming like us.
So, yeah, I think that was my first inclination as well. Something like that, right? Like the monsters are leveling up to that human form. But now that I'm talking to you both about it, I'm actually wondering if it's somehow the other way around. Like maybe if it was Tetsuo's father, let's just say, right? He's remained on Earth the whole time Tetsuo's been gone. So maybe some crazy shit happened here on Earth, turned him into a weird creature that somehow got him to communicate with the space monsters and then bring them to Earth. And then somehow also Snowball Earth. I don't really know how that plays into it. But
Okay.
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like there's some kind of hybridization happening here between whatever that final human-looking guy is and the monsters, but then also the freezing. So we
What if
end
it's
this
Lonely Iwaki?
Lonely Iwaki. We should say
the
is
guy,
the
yeah,
author.
the author of the book, the self-help book.
I
He's
like
the
that.
last boss.
And then maybe
And he didn't even really like people, and that's why he made so
Yeah.
many rules in order to make friends, so no one would ever make friends.
And we know that Tetsuo isn't the kind of character who's going to skip ahead to read the end of the self-help book. So maybe
No.
like item number 777 really is like finally to make all the friends freeze Earth so that all of your friends can't
Become
escape.
one with everyone.
Yeah,
The
you know what I
relationship's
mean?
perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. We've come up with so many interesting theories about what could happen in this series, but I really got to say, like, it worked for me. I was totally along for the ride. Like you said, Mark, it's a big, stupid shonen action roller coaster with just like so many disparate elements, but then it ends on this crazy mystery cliffhanger. And I personally can't wait to see how it all plays out and how these things are all interconnected. And yeah, so far, super into it. Final thoughts from either of you, and also who would you recommend reads this book, Mark?
Well, I think we haven't even mentioned the Ice Princess and her tribe of people.
God, yeah, that's true.
There's the lead singer from the Norwegian band Aurora makes a debut in this this volume, and she's got like her underlings. It feels like there's a quasi-military thing going on. It's kind of like The Last of Us without quarantine zones, but it's just they're living underground in the caves. I was looking forward to finding more about that society, and if Tetsuo is going to join with them and help them.
will.
Well,
can only
shit,
imagine.
there it goes. Yeah.
Stick with it.
So yeah, no, I'm looking forward to learning more about that in Volume 2 and beyond. But yeah, no, the story, the world that he sets up is, it's very believable. And I think if you're fans of mecha, sure, absolutely, you're gonna like this. But I think it's even more than that. It's fantasy in general. Like it's got the post-apocalyptic genre down. But I think that if you are like a super serious sci-fi person, and you don't like humor in your stories, you are not going to enjoy this.
Oh, no,
because
you'd hate
humor is
this.
absolutely fundamental to every. There's always a slapstick. So that is my one caveat. And with that, I rated it 6 snowflakes for art and plot twists.
Very nice. Alex?
I don't have like a snowflake rating. I was just gonna say like if you like sci-fi that is like anything that Hideaki Anno does, or like I don't know, it had a similar vibe to like Gridman. You know Gridman? What is it? S. Do you even say those S's? I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Anyway,
I don't know how to
it's
pronounce
like kind of like like teens and robots. If you like that kind of thing, then this is up your alley very much. So
Nice.
in that it's like, I think it will definitely, I don't know, if it continues in the same way, I think it's probably going to get an anime, and then you're going to feel compelled to watch it anyway. So
I would
think
100%.
It will get the anime bump.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think this
it's
could
gonna
work as an
happen.
anime.
It's not always that I read a manga and think, oh, I'd love to see an anime adaptation of this, because I don't usually care. But reading this one, I absolutely felt like, yeah, give me an anime of this. I would watch it 100%.
No, it's got the expansive world. Yeah, it works.
I'm going to give Snowball Earth a final rating of 772 out of 777 possible steps to make friends on a frozen planet.
Okay.
That's going to do it for this episode of Mangaroos. As always, get in touch with us. You can email us at mangaroospodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also, give us a rating on your favorite podcatcher, especially... a 5-star rating would be great. But any kind of ratings and reviews help us, and, let it be easier for people to find the podcast. So the more, the merrier. Tell your friends. Tell your mom.
mothers.
Yeah.
Tell your mother. I don't know if your mothers are interested in manga.
However
mom, say
mothers
hi.
Oh,
you
this
have.
Snowball Earth, it's not in English, but I imagine in the future it could get
It could
English.
well be, yes.
Yeah,
So-
just put it on your mom's radar if you haven't already. And, any moms that you may encounter. And I think
And dads.
from moms,
And dads.
dads,
It's not gender
and from all of
specific.
us here at Mangaroos, call your mom, call your dad. Just say hi. How they doing, Check in on them every once in a while.
Make sure it's not too cold where they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless they put you in a robot at a young age.
And in which
maybe.
case, you should probably do family counseling. I mean, you don't want to work that through by yourself. You are not the issue. It's not your fault, Jason.
Great note to end on. It's not my fault, Jason.
It's not
All
your
right.
fault. But no, there's one thing I have to plug. So this is a regular series that we're putting out weekly, and the next volume will introduce a new series. We have just finished our snow cycle, and we are on to a new cycle for manga, and it is historical figures, not
Historical figures.
Not historic figures, historical figures, so it can be anyone. And I am going to talk about one of my absolute favorite historic figures, and that is Yaboy Kongming, or in Japanese Paripi Kome, who is the legendary strategist from Sangokshi, which is probably like, what is it, the Three Kingdoms?
Three Kingdoms, yeah.
Does that even
Romance of the
exist
Three
in
Kingdoms.
English? It's super big in Japan. And
China.
all of Asia, obviously.
Yeah.
One of the greatest things that China's ever done. But the master strategist behind Newbie's, his country comes back, is reincarnated into modern day Shibuya. So tune in next time to find out more about that.
Great pick. Looking forward to that. So once again, if you're reading along with us at home, next week's pick is Paripi Kome. We'll see you back here in about a week's time. Take care, everybody. Bye for now.
Peace!